Hi there, I'm Nicholas Hirsch, music director of the Modesto Symphony, and welcome to part 2 of this series on Ukrainian composer Dmitri Klebanov and his First Symphony, which the MSO and I will be performing on November 14 and 15, 2025. In our previous video, we looked at Klebanov's biography and how this symphony, dedicated to the victims of the Nazi massacres at Babi, was banned by Stalin's government because it allegedly made reference to the fact that specifically Jewish people and not Soviets were the victims of these atrocities. In this video, we're exploring the music of this supposed anti-Soviet symphony, starting with the first movement. We start in D minor. Hushed tremolo strings, and the theme in the cello and bass. So this is our main theme, and it's an important one for several reasons. Well, first, spoiler alert, it will appear in the symphony many times. Why? Why this theme, though? Well, I think of it as the Babi theme itself, so Klebanov keeps coming back to it as the kernel of the whole symphony. Remember that Babi is a ravine, and you have these falling fourths and fifths, and you can think of it as falling down into the bottom of this ravine, into the pit. And then, the next part of this theme rises. It's like you're trying to climb out of this pit, and then suddenly a brutal descending scale, falling forever. There is no escape. Now, there's another important aspect to all of this. You may have noticed some similarities to another very famous symphony, First Movement, which starts very much the same way with these tremolando strings. That's the opening to Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. And in this case, we have the treble playing the tune with the bass instruments accompanying, and in Klebanov, it's just swapped so that the treble plays the accompaniment and the bass plays the tune. Remember, it goes like this. And it's the same key and everything, and even the big climax that this theme builds up to is very similar between Klebanov's First and Beethoven's Ninth. This is Klebanov. And this is Beethoven. This reference to Beethoven's famous Ninth is hardly a coincidence. And it's going to be important for later. Very, very important. Cue foreshadowing, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, this is a sonata form first movement. And usually a sonata form comes with not one, but two themes to play with. So let's take a look at the appearance of the second theme that Klebanov gives us. Strings in E major, now with a rising fifth and a yearning half step. This is the basis of the second theme versus the falling fourth of the first Babi theme. This theme is like a warm hug. It's a memory of happier times, all those good, fuzzy, nostalgic feelings. And this theme, too, will play an important part in this symphony later. Now I just want to point out some key transformations of these two themes as the movement develops. First, we have this tripletized version of the second theme versus the duple version that we presented in the beginning. This is a kind of slow march now in this triplet form for solo cello and bass accompaniment. It goes like this. he's taking the nostalgic rising fifth half step of the second theme into this more sinister, dreadful version with a rising fourth. And with the repetition of it, it becomes this kind of musical 1,000-yard stare, akin to the feeling maybe of a forced march to one's own execution. It becomes this massive, long build-up as this theme repeats and repeats and repeats. Last crescendo, the brutal swell that cuts off so suddenly. It's like the expectation of a gunshot that never comes. And then, immediately following that, Klebanov gives us one of the most peculiar, but I have to say delightful duets that I have ever come across in a symphony. So here's a question. How many duets are there for contrabassoon and French horn together? And you can still hear those falling fourths from the first theme, the Babi theme, in the contrabassoon against the half step, that yearning half step in the French horn. I just love this brilliant little juxtaposition of these two instruments by Klebanov here. This first movement is filled with many, many more incredible moments. We have tender songs and violent outbursts and everything in between. And so how does he wrap this whole movement up? A tender oboe, reintroducing the most lonely, isolated version yet of the Babi theme. And it's followed by that old descending scale, the falling, falling, falling into the pit scale. Finally, that A minor chord in the trombones. Now, if you remember, we started this movement in D minor, and now we're a fourth lower in A minor. And it's that same falling fourth that starts the first theme, that is the foundation of this whole symphony. So please, if you can, come experience this remarkable piece live for the first time anywhere outside of Ukraine with the Modesto Symphony Orchestra this November 14 and 15, 2025 at the Gallo Center for the Arts in Modesto. And join me again for the next video where we'll have a look at the raucous and riveting scherzo movement of Klebanov's First Symphony. So until next time, thanks for watching.